The date was May 22nd, 2008. I was a freshman in high school and I'd just gotten out of Algebra 1 class on a half day. It was probably about 12:30 in the afternoon, and I went right across the street to Studio 28, the movie theater that was right across the street from my high school. I had never been more excited for a movie to come out in the theater, even more so than I was for Rocky Balboa, which came out in 2006, just 2 years prior. I could not wait for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I will tell you this, that was a disappointing walk home from the movie theater. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cinema Sermons. My name is Kevin, and today we are going to be reviewing the fourth film in the Indiana Jones franchise, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, I have yet to see Dial of Destiny. I'm actually going to go see that here in a few hours, so I will let you know what I think about that. And of course, we will do our ranking of all the indie films as soon as I get that done. But for now, this is the worst film in the franchise. But it does have some redeeming qualities, and it's not as bad as I remembered it being. So let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But before we do, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. It helps out the channel tremendously. Let me know down in the comments, were you excited, surprised, disappointed, or do you like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Let me know down below. So jumping into my positives. First and foremost, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones brings, again, just so much charm and charisma to the character. There has not been one performance of his where he just does not bring it. And I gotta say, it's always fun to see him back in the Indy hat and whip and in the getup.
Damn, I thought that was closer.
The opening of the movie actually was pretty exciting. I enjoyed it. And I know everyone hates him hiding in a refrigerator to escape a nuclear blast scene. That's no more unrealistic than the part where they're falling out of the plane in a life raft in Temple of Doom. So, you know, you're watching an Indiana Jones movie. That's not the most unrealistic thing that has happened in this franchise yet. So I wasn't bothered by it that much. I actually thought they did a really good job with the time period. They tell us that Indy had fought in World War II, that he won a bunch of medals. So at this point, he would have been in his 40s. So he didn't need to fight, but at this point, he'd become a hero and he'd seen the evil of the Nazis. So he fought in World War II. So we see that Indy continued in his heroism. And in the opening scene, I do think it's fun that he's just captured. We have no idea what happened to him. We had no idea what he's doing. He's just in the back of a trunk, and we're just like, that's so Indy. But anyway, yes, it does a good job with the 1950s set piece. It has good music cues, the fight between the greasers and the jocks. I loved that scene.
Here, hold this. What?
What? That's my boyfriend! Get that greaser!
And it does a good job showing that Indy is now past his prime. When we meet him in Raiders, he's in the prime of his life. And this movie came out, what, 15, 16 years after the last movie had come out. So he's an older man. I believe Harrison Ford was like 65 when this film came out. So he's definitely past his prime. And we're seeing him struggle with that. Like, the time period where he thrived in has now passed him by. I actually don't mind the character of Mutt Williams. I know a lot of people didn't like Shia LaBeouf in the casting. At the time, I hated it because he was the Even Stevens kid. Now we've seen that he actually is a really good actor. And rewatching it, I didn't hate the character of Mutt Williams. I actually wish they would have explored that father-son dynamic more. I wish that Mutt would have known Indy was a dad. He was just kind of an absent deadbeat dad. And he like reached out to him because like, hey, you're the only one who can help me. Like, I don't like you, you don't like me, but I need your help. I think that would have added a better dynamic to the film, but I actually do like the character of Mutt Williams. The chase sequence through the college is actually a lot of fun. It's a really good chase sequence. It's a very Indiana Jones-ish. It's a very vintage Indiana Jones style chase scene. And then we get the globe-trotting adventure where they travel down to Peru, I believe it is, and they start go through the ruins and things like that. And that feels like an Indiana Jones movie. It has some really good sequences. Of course, the great John Williams brings a wonderful score, and we start to see the remnants of what could have been a really good movie. And I actually think Mutt and Indy have really good chemistry of the grizzled old man and the young, brash hothead. I think it works pretty well. And then, of course, the return of our girl, Marion Ravenwood. And she's still just got that devilish smile. She's still giving crap right back to Indy. And you can tell that there was tension there, because when we left them in Raiders, they were good. Then she's not there in Last Crusade, so what happened? and we find out what happened between these two, and there's still that genuine connection. There's still that love. Like, even though they're giving each other crap, Indy loves Marion and Marion loves Indy.
I'm sure I wasn't the only one to go on with my life. There must have been plenty of women for you over the years.
There were a few, but they all had the same problem.
Yeah, what's that?
They weren't you, honey.
The fight scenes with the big Russian I thought were cool. And of course using the Russians as the bad guys, because at that time in the 1950s it was the Red Scare, it was the scare about communism and all those other things. That works well for this time period. Instead of just going back to Nazis, they used the time period, and I think that actually worked well. And this movie's kind of split into two halves. The first half is actually not a bad movie. The second half is where it goes off the rails. Which brings me into my negatives. Big one right off the bat is Aliens. And I get that George Lucas wanted to use the time period because what was going on at that time? It was the UFO crashing in Roswell, New Mexico. It was the 1950s movies of, you know, The Thing and The Thing from Outer Space and Invasion of the Spacemen and things like that. And they wanted to do something like that. He actually thought about doing like a 1950s style monster movie. I kid you not. One of the ideas was Indiana Jones and the Attack of the Giant Ants. I kid you not. That is an actual thing. Thank God that didn't happen. But they were trying to play off that time period because it worked so well in the 30s and 40s, but that was just a much different time compared to the 1950s. So I get what they were going for. In some aspects it worked, but trying to bring in the aliens, I just did not feel that that fits for an Indiana Jones film. And then they say that they're not even aliens, they're interdimensional beings. And I'm like, so you just made it even stupider. So that didn't work for me at all. That is a big negative. Again, the villain is trying to use, which I don't really find her intimidating as a villain, but she's supposed to have like these mind kinetic powers or whatever. I get it. At the time, the CIA was actually exploring with telekinesis and things like that. It doesn't fit for an indie movie. We came there with a very specific goal in mind. We didn't see that. It just felt very out of place. It was a good idea in concept, and execution did not work for us as an audience. Shia LaBeouf swinging through the vines with monkeys, that was one of the dumbest scenes I've ever seen. I knew it was coming, and I'm still like, yeah, this sucks. This scene sucks. The MacGuffin actually wasn't that bad, because it got people interested in what the crystal skulls actually were, and then you find out that that's an actual thing because, you know, we were able to Google at that time, and you're like, oh wow, this could actually be kind of cool. Like, what are they? And it got your intrigue going. But again, just the idea of extraterrestrials does not work within the Indiana Jones setting. And my final negative, and this is what really takes it out for me and what makes it not feel like an Indiana Jones film, is it is almost all digital. It is so much CGI. Like we said, in the original 3 films, they used as much practical effects as they could. Did they use CGI at times? Yes. You know, they couldn't actually practically get fire to come down from the sky and land in the Ark of the Covenant. But this movie does CGI for everything. CGI explosions, CGI car chases. It just takes you out of the movie because now you're not on this adventure with them. You don't feel like it's real. You don't feel like the stakes are high. You're just watching all this CGI. And at that time, CGI is not what it is today. You know, where Thanos actually looks like he could be real. But even then, you know that's CGI. It did not have the same feel. It took it out, and it definitely leaves a sour taste in your mouth. It really does. I'm sorry, one more final negative. The city flies away at the end. They find this ancient city, and the city gets up and flies away. That's a negative for me. Honestly, it's hard for me to find a sermon for this movie because you just don't enjoy it like you did the other ones. The other ones, you just get sucked in, and it's so easy to create these ideas, especially with the first and third film because they're overtly Christian ideas. Or the Ark of the Covenant is Jewish as well, but Christian and Jewish. Anyway, Judeo-Christian. This one was hard for me to find a sermon for. I don't know. Don't go looking for aliens. I'm just kidding. Not every idea is a good one. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Legitimately. At the time, they thought CGI was going to be great. This is going to be so much better. Looking back 15 years later, we see that that wasn't a good idea. It does not hold up nearly to what the practical effects did. And they thought at the time, hey, let's go with the 1950s thing. It's going to work. It didn't work. So I guess there's some wisdom in that. Of just, even if something sounds like a good idea, it doesn't mean that it always is. And just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. So just take that little nugget of wisdom and think about that and apply that to your lives, especially us as Christians. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. I'm sorry, I know this is what you come to this channel for, man, but this movie sucks. So I can't even give you that. So for my final rating, I have to give this movie a 2.5 out of 5 stars. There's a good movie buried in here. It just wasn't there in execution. Like I said, as I rewatched it, it's not as bad as I remembered it being. It definitely has some good moments. It has some redeeming qualities, but it's definitely not a good movie. So you can go ahead and skip it if you've never seen Crystal Skull. Like I said, it does have some good moments, but it's just not a satisfying film. It does not leave you with anything. Like Nerdrotic always says, there are 3 Indiana Jones films and only 3. So if you do decide to watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like I said, there is a good movie buried in here, but it did not come out in execution, so I gotta give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. So that is my review for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Let me know down below what you think about this movie. Were you disappointed, or do you actually love it? You are entitled to your opinion. So please let me know what you think. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. It helps out the channel tremendously. And remember, I love you, Jesus loves you. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. See you guys.